All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with part two of the Dota Radio Morning Show, episode number 8, and we are on with our guest today. We have Buller from the EEL, the European Elite League, kind of the counterpart to the NA Dota Elite League. Buller, how are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I am fabulous, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate you taking some time. So start off by introducing yourself a little bit. I think a lot of people out there don't know exactly who you are. What is your role in the EEL?
Basically, I'm a voucher. I'm doing. I was handling the voucher requests before, but now I'm just like a moderator in the channel, and I've been doing all the unvouching pretty much, removing all the bad players from the league. So that's my main job actually, and yeah, I'm pretty unpopular around. Yeah,
Yeah,
people are really
rough
mad that I
job.
didn't vouch them.
Someone's got to be the bad guy, man. Someone
Yeah.
has to do the dirty job.
Yeah, seriously. So, how is that? How do you guys decide, as you put it, bad players? Is it based on manners? Is it just based on skill level? How do you decide who gets unvouched once they're already in?
Well, it's based on skill level, and it's pretty much we have this thing called a censor, which is some good players that we chose. Most of them are pro players like Funnick, Loda, Sunan, and so on. And if they see a bad player in their games, they can choose to censure that player or make a complaint in the censor chat. And if we get enough complaints about a player, he'll be unvouched.
Okay. Interesting. And I see IX Mike in the chat. I know you guys work together a little bit. Big shout out to IX Mike. He was a guest of ours a few episodes back, at least. So how is EEL going overall? And it's obviously a little bit more popular than its North American counterpart because there are some just kind of bigger players in the league, you know, Dendy and Cinderin and, you know, Dread and those kind of folks. How would you say EEL is going overall? Are you guys happy with the turnout and the viewership and all that stuff, or do you wish it was going a little better?
It's going a lot better than I imagined it would actually. We have like 4 or 5 games at the same time, almost all the time. It's running 24/7, and we got pretty much all the top players except maybe Fnatic playing there. So I'd say it's gone a lot better than expected. It's even gone so well that it's hurt the NEL, which is pretty inactive right now, and we're making some changes about that.
Yeah, and is it region locked? I mean, could North American players play in the EEL if they were so inclined to deal with the ping issues and the time issues?
It's been like that so far, but I mean, they've been able to play in EL so far, but in 2 days we're going to make it region locked so NEL can go active again.
And how will you go about enforcing that? Like, how are
Well,
you
you gotta
actually
ask
gonna
Guys
stop
Mike about
this?
that.
Okay.
Well, we're going to unvouch all the American players, so that's how we're going to do it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I guess you have that control. I was going to say, I guess my question is, like, how do you prove who's who? But I guess in this sort of a thing, it's pretty easy to know who's who and that kind of stuff. So what I like about these kind of tournaments where they kind of allow us to break from the meta a little bit. You know, we have these groups of really, really good players playing kind of individually a little bit more so. You know, I remember seeing some highlights of Dendy doing like some YOLO Aegis steals and those kind of moves. So they're pretty exciting. I'm assuming you're a pretty big fan of this format as well compared to some of the like just traditional serious tournaments out there?
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of in-house leagues. I think it's a great place to experiment with new strats, and I think it's also a great place to find new players if you're making a competitive team. You can see which available players there are who have the individual skill to play in a top team.
Right.
And recruit them from there.
Right. So, yeah, that said, what are some of the problems that you guys have run into running this league? I know you mentioned, you know, Dread streaming has made it so popular that you're getting too many voucher requests. So is that kind of the biggest issue that you guys have run into so far with the league?
It's been it's been insane how much attention we've been getting from the Russian community. They've been making hundreds of voucher requests, like 100 each day, I think. And spamming everyone, and so that's been heavy, but not really that much of an issue. But we recently closed the vouching on the forum, so we're only vouching top players now.
Right. Well, I guess that's a good problem to have, where you're able to close the gates and say, you know what, we've got plenty of top tier players. We're good. We're good. €1,500 is the season 1 prize pool. That is pretty solid. Who's the direct sponsor of that? Are you guys doing? Is there a ticket in game where some of the sales go towards the prize pool like NEL did?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same format as EEL. As far as I know, the majority of the prize pool is from the tickets. I actually don't think there is a sponsor. I think everything comes from the tickets, but I guess Alex Mike can explain that in the chat.
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything you want to chime in with?
Just talking about these players who aren't really playing on their kind of on their team. They're not playing with the group they're used to. How really different for you is the dynamic between players who are playing kind of a sort of standout individual skill and players who are, against people who are usually fitting into a team structure they're used to? Are different people rising to the top, or is it still kind of the same big names are really dominant?
Mainly it's the Russian stacks that are dominating right now. They go with 5 people and play against another stack, and so the Roxkiss and the VP stack are getting a lot of wins. But yeah, you can tell when pro players play alone, they have a hard time. They're not used to that way of playing, and they're used to a lot more of communication. So some of the players that don't play in a pro team but have a high individual skill do a lot better than the pro players, simply because they're used to that way of playing.
Interesting. Sorry, I've been tinkering with my mic. I think I may have fixed it here. I was having some audio issues. So it's pretty exciting. I'm glad that someone is going through the grunt work, so to speak, of dealing with the vouchers and dealing with all the logistics, as it may be, of an in-house league, because I think it is a really good thing. I like having events that break up the monotony of the serious streams. We've got a lot of really serious tournaments right now where everyone's trying hard, and I think it's great to give the players an outlet to still practice a little bit, still play Dota, but in a different venue where it's a little bit less stressful, a little bit more fun, and they get to kind of impress their fans a little bit. So I'm a fan, though. I have to admit, Buller, I have not watched much EEL. Do you guys have a dedicated stream? Who's been doing the English commentary for it?
We have a lot of different streamers who's streaming from time to time. So there is actually Neo Dota is our dedicated stream. I guess they stream sometimes, yeah. And Shiva has been streaming with them a bit.
Oh, that's nice.
You can also watch them on the player streams, especially Dread and Dendy stream.
Yeah,
Apopla, yeah.
Cool. And the grand finals, this is going to be going on for a while. The grand finals are right now set for December 22nd. So there's going to be matches going on for a pretty long time here, at least another good month and a half or so before things wind down. So that's pretty exciting. Plenty of EEL action. Is there a website that folks can go to that may be watching this that don't know what we're talking about, where they can get more information and at least know where to check stuff out? I guess they can't sign up and get vouched anymore, but at least check out what EEL is all about.
Yeah, that would be neodota.com/EEL.
Okay. There he is. Liquid Mike in chat with the link. Big shout out to him once again. Chris, do you have anything else you want to add, or are you solid here?
No, I'm good. I'm just, like you said, I'm very excited that in-house leagues are making a comeback. That was one of the big things I missed in the transition from War 3 Dota to Dota 2.
Yeah.
Was that we didn't have a lot of in-house leagues. And, when we chatted with Mike and now we're chatting with you, Bowler, it makes me very happy that the culture is still around.
Samesies for sure. And we talked about meta. This whole episode is kind of based around meta, and this is definitely an opportunity where players can play against the meta. They can kind of do whatever they want. They can do those kind of YOLO strats, throw those curveballs. So I'm always a fan of shutting down some of those meta warriors that are super serious about our stone cold meta. So Bowler, again, thank you for being here. We do appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. Do you have any shout outs or anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, shout out to Alex Mike for creating such a great league. To Jord, my man. That's it.
Awesome. Well, take care, my friend. We may be in touch in the future. I'll do my best to check out EEL, and I hope things continue going well for your league.
Thanks.
All right. So That was Buller from EEL, and Chris, we're going to move in to talking points here. Let's go ahead and talk some Meta Warrior action. Oh god, this is going to be fun. Funsies indeed. So this is a good segue. As I was just mentioning, the great thing about EEL is we see differences in meta. You know, they aren't these teams that are trying to just work the meta as hard as they can for victory, and that's going to be a nice segue into what we're talking about here. Meta Warriors, how Fnatic is ruining the meta game. And I was going to put ruining in quotes, but no, they are ruining the meta game, although in a positive manner, bringing back those 6.78 heroes. Let's dive straight into it. So, as we talked about before, Fnatic's been winning these awesome matches with some of these older 6.78 heroes, right? Wisp, Naga, Tidehunter are some of the big ones. Tidehunter, I guess, not quite as 6.780 as some of the others here, but Bat Rider in particular is another one that has fallen off the radar. I know one of Chris's pet peeves here is the overreaction to how bad his nerf was. Yes, his last hit damage is really beat now. Yes, the jungle changes really hurt Bat Rider, but he's still unbelievably powerful. He can still isolate individual heroes to start off and engage and set your team up for victory. Chaos Knight, another one. We saw him paired with Wisp the other day where Fnatic was able to take a win running that classic combo that I think that's the first time I've seen a CK Wisp since 6.79, at least one that was successful. So it's sort of natural for players, and not just pro players, but also, pub players, those of us that enjoy Dota, reading those patch notes, to overreact a little bit to changes. That's a very natural human reaction, and it's not isolated to Dota 2. I saw that in Han, even more so with a smaller community where there are less teams experimenting outwards with different builds, different hero comps, different laning situations. To a huge degree. You know, we've seen it in League of Legends as well, and many other games. StarCraft, pretty much you name it, you got it. And Dota is really no different. So we're not hating on people for overreacting, but just think it through a little bit. Again, that argument of how Bat Rider is total trash tier now, I don't get it, man. I can't empathize. I don't know what you're saying. I see your mouth moving, but I don't understand no words. So their sort of recent 6.78 style of domination has really helped to silence some of these meta warriors. And for those of you scratching your head saying, all right, so what the hell is a meta warrior? I came up with this definition. I actually did a little bit of Googling this morning. I hunted around for an actual definition of meta warrior, and alas, I couldn't find one. So this is how I labeled it. It is a public player that is yet to realize that the meta game is essentially meaningless when you're not playing near the skill cap. The whole point of the meta game is if, all right, we've got a 5v5, we got 10 players. All of these players, Na'Vi versus Alliance, are top tier. They are about as high to the skill cap in Dota as you can get to, right? That's where the metagame really comes in handy. The metagame is looking at which heroes are accepted as just a little bit more powerful if you can use them to their full utility versus other heroes. You know, that sort of classic, why don't people ever play Meepo? It's like, well, because there are carries that carry harder with less effort that have less vulnerabilities. That's metagame 101. That's why Meepo is not really on the radar in our current meta versus someone like an anti-mage, even though that's probably not the best example, but so you kind of see what I'm going for here. And these folks can be pretty annoying in terms of the pub games. Those are the guys who go, hey, you guys mind if I dazzle mid? Are you fucking crazy? Dazzle can't go mid. It's like, dude, at this level, it doesn't really matter. It's about last hitting. If you're like me and you don't play that much Dota, you've got 150 wins, 300 or 200 wins, what have you. The meta game doesn't really matter. Your ability to last hit is more important than anything else. You can put pretty much any hero anywhere and outplay your opponent and still win. The meta game is all about being near the skill cap, and that's one of the things that bothers me about this kind of, this is what the pro teams are doing right now, and this is what we have to do. And my kind of takeaway here is that the metagame is not set in stone. And I really do tip my hat to Fnatic. One of the reasons they have so many followers, they've been such a popular team, one of several reasons, mind you, partially because they've been around for so long and their history and Heroes of Newerth and all that stuff. But they kind of ignore that meta. They do what they want when they want. They do what they're comfortable with, and they're on a hot streak right now. They came back from Korea and they're like, you know what? This 6.79 gimmicky bullshit, we're not into it. Necronomicon? Pfft. Let's just keep doing what we know. Let's play our Wisp. Let's play our Naga. These other teams don't see their value. That's great. I think Fnatic looks at that and says, good, that's better for us. We can get these heroes now. No one's going to contest our Wisp first pick. And I tip my hat. I mean, we even saw No Tail do Wisp mid in one game. They call those audibles. They do weird stuff. They throw that meta up in the air and rely on their teamwork, their synergy. And I think that's the important thing. And trying to hyper-analyze the metagame of what these teams are doing, like, oh, Handamitis, everybody's getting it, it's broken. Oh, Necronomicon, everybody's getting it, it's broken. It isn't really. We just have to let these strategies evolve a little bit. We have to experiment and not be afraid to stray away from the stone-cold meta. Hippie, what's your take on this whole jib jab?
Yeah, I totally agree that a lot of people are overreacting to nerfs, and that there are definitely some heroes that have kind of risen to the top after the patch. I think Lich is one of those who really, really deserved it. He got these kind of massive buffs that made him viable, but I think some of the heroes that disappeared, I mean, the fact that we don't see Naga as much as we used to, which, I mean, sure, her Riptide got nerfed, but at the same time, you still have Song of the Siren. You still have the Net. The Riptide is still good. It's just a little harder to use because of the increased mana cost. I really hope I'm not misquoting patch notes right here, because that would be very embarrassing to me as a person. But, you know, you still have one of the best counter initiation and initiation spells in the game. You still have an anti-BKB root. And because of the fact that physical immunity doesn't work right in Dota 2 and doesn't dispel Net, it's even better than it ever was in Dota 1. And, you know, on top of that, the fact that we don't see Wisp, sure, he's situational now. He's not the end-all, be-all, I am a god-tier hero. But the fact that he can just drop anyone anywhere on the map and give you that level of map mobility, there are lineups that will use him insanely well. And Fnatic has always been one of the teams that uses map mobility better than anyone else. It's half the reason No Tail's Meepo is so scary, is because he's everywhere on the map. He's everywhere and nowhere. If you try to go after one Meepo, it poofs away. If you see one Meepo, suddenly there's 5 of them blinking on you and killing you.
Yeah.
I think that's
a really good way to sum up No Tail's Meepo. He's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. That's some mysterious New World Order shit right there, Chris.
Well, it's just, you know,
I like it.
They take a lot of advantage of it. And, you know, Trixie plays a very good natured prophet. He's, you know, very used to being kind of everywhere on the map. No Tail on Meepo or on Wisp or on whoever he wants to. Yep. And then Fly plays a pretty darn good Coddle. And they can, you know, there's a lot of these heroes they utilize, I think, a little better than everyone else that let people get around the map. I can't wait for Fnatic to see some play with Abyssal Underlord when he gets dropped in, because that's gonna be some shit, man. You mark my words. Fnatic is gonna play around with that hero, and it's gonna be a blast to see.
Yeah. So we actually still have Buller with us. He's been listening to all the horse shit that's been coming out of my mouth here. And Buller, you have a slightly different take on Batrider. Would you care to enlighten us here?
Yeah, I don't think Batrider is viable anymore in competitive games, because mainly because of the change in the small camp, which makes it really hard to jungle the Batrider in the beginning. You don't have the small camp anymore that you can farm to get your Firefly up. And you lost the 10 damage in the base damage, so that makes it a pretty weak laner. I mean, you can still play it because it's a great initiator in late game, but I just think the laning is too bad now, so it's gonna be very rare.
Yeah, the position I like Bat in right now is not mid, not jungle, as much as sort of a solo safe lane, when they've got a Clockwork long lane or a Darkseer, as rare as that is these days. And I think that's where he has that opportunity to shine. In mid, I think you're a little bit... I think you're on point with that. He can still do mid, but it's so difficult because his base damage is so low. In that solo safe lane, he has a little bit more freedom, a little bit more room to play around, and then he still has the jungle there. He's slower in the jungle, but I think it's still possible, unless he gets really unlucky with golem spawns. That's really the big thing. Those mud golems that are immune to fire, they're a pain. But other than that, I mean, the jungling is still viable. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Well, I think it's a little less safe, because I think instead of rotating between, at least in the in both jungles, you still have a hard camp and an easy camp very, very close to each other that you can get the Firefly off of. It's just less safe. You're not as close to mid. You're a little further away from other lanes, and you're a little closer to the enemy offlaner who can try to come in and steal some of your jungle camps. So it's sort of possible to jungle him, but it's a lot less good. I don't disagree that his laning presence is obviously significantly nerfed with a loss of 10 damage. But I think what basically happened to Batrider is we'll see him picked in lanes where people know they need his power, they need kind of his anti-BKB, which got the slight nerf to its cast range, obviously, but still an incredibly powerful initiation ability.
Yeah.
I think he'll be used a lot more often in against weaker mid laners. I mean, if you have someone who can't really stand up to a Bat Rider anyway, I mean, someone like, say, a Dragon Knight who sustains perfectly fine in lane, but doesn't really get a lot done. He's not gonna zone a Bat Rider out of lane. He's mostly last hitting with Breathe Fire, and with the Napalm bonus damage, you'll be able to get some good last hits. Someone maybe like a Magnetar, someone like a lot of the melee mids, I think he'll do just fine against, and he'll be able to get his farm up.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is he won't just auto-win every single lane, but if you find a lane to put him in where he's going to do fine, he's going to get some farm and levels, he's still going to be a really powerful pick. But just like Wisp, he's not auto-pick anymore. He's kind of very niche.
I was just going to say, just like Wisp now, he's still good, but much more situational when you have that matchup rather than before where it's just like, I don't really care what you do. There is nothing you can really do to stop this guy. He's going to be out of control, and I think that's a better approach. But over time, I don't know, Bowler. I think there will be a sort of a happy medium. A Bat Rider will be picked a bit in niche rosters, but right now I think there's been an overreaction of too much Bat Rider hate. I still like seeing Bat Rider. I don't think he's that bad. He can still fly off into the corners of the map, Broodmother style, and you can't kill him. Not many heroes can do that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's still one of the best initiators in the game, so it's gonna get picked once in a while.
But you're right, and it does make it more difficult to get that farm. I think you used a great word, Chris. It's a lot less safe now to farm with him, which was one of the problems before, where he could just sit deep in the jungle in those two little camps, and to get to him, you have to run through the danger zone just to find him. Good changes. If those mud golems weren't there, I still contend the mud golems are really the bane of his existence early on. If you get an unlucky spawn, that just sucks. You can't do it. You can't kill him.
Owie put it in the way that basically if you try to do the medium camp and the hard camp and you're just hoping for luck, and you get mud golems, that medium camp is now gone to you. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So you've literally just lost one of your farming camps, and so that's why I think you really should, if you do desperately need a jungle Bat Rider, be rotating still between the small and the hard camp. Yep. And it's just, the distance is a little greater, it's a little less safe, but you'll actually still get the farm, as opposed to just kind of crossing your fingers, please no mud golems, please no mud golems. Everyone hates mud golems, man. Every jungler hates mud golems.
Yeah, they're the worst. They really are. So, all right, well, that's a nice little, that transitioned nicely into a talk about Bat Rider. It's almost like he was our analysis desk hero today, but no, we're going to have a little bit of Crobulus talk here. Death Prophet changes in 6.79. Buller, you're welcome to stick around and give us your take on Death Prophet as well once Chris is done, but call me Crobulus. Chris, take it away with what we've seen with Death Prophet.
Okay, so Death Prophet, obviously the big change, she got one big change, which is her spirit damage increased and the number of spirits she's allowed to have is fixed, which basically equates to a 43% increase in her average ultimate damage. 43% at max level. And if you played against her in pubs, you know her ultimate could already chew people up pretty hard if it was allowed to kind of hit people. If they were just kind of hanging out, if they were maybe trying to chase her, if she's durable in team fights, she gets a lot of damage done. So seeing that kind of massive, massive increase in and of itself is a good reason to try her out, a good reason to pick her, and we've seen her be very successful in the past week or so. But on top of that, there's a couple other big things I think are pushing her into more viability. The first one is obviously that we're kind of seeing a lot of heavier push strats be favored. And one of Death Prophet's big problems is that when she's alone, she's very easy to pick off in the early game. She's very easy to shut down. Even with her strong 1v1 presence because of Crypt Swarm, she can get ganked very, very easily. And so if your team is grouping up earlier to do pushing, which you can do with the Death Prophet ultimate, obviously all of that damage, of course, the increase isn't really there until later levels, but it was always, a perfectly good tower pusher at lower levels. You can take your mid tower if the enemy mid goes to gank.
Right.
Pretty easily. So she can get that work done very early. She's very nice with someone like a Chen, like an Enchantress, who gets these kind of early pushes going. She augments it very, very well while also giving you a team fight ult that people don't want to engage into at low levels, and that is still pretty powerful at high levels because it's physical damage and not magical and goes right through BKB. The other one, I think, the other big change in the meta we're seeing that is causing her to be a little more viable is actually that there are so many rotations coming from supports, more than even we were used to. We started to see, at the end of the 6.78 meta, supports really started to roam a lot pretty early. But I really think it's even picked up now in 6.79. There's more of that going on. And while you think, oh, a weak gankable mid hero, if people are roaming, then that's probably bad for her, right? But on the flip side, it means her supports are there a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And Death Prophet with some backup, Death Prophet with some lockdown is a furious foe. Yeah. She's incredibly hard to handle. She can crypt swarm you from ages away if you're just stuck there. She can hit all of your rotating heroes at the same time. In an even fight in mid, she very often will come out on top as long as she has some good lockdown, some slow, some stun for her supports.
Right.
And that, I think these extra rotations actually are getting her more farm than she ever would before.
Yeah, and she's, in my mind, very similar to a Shadow Fiend in terms of momentum-based, a similar set of vulnerabilities. No escape mechanism other than move speed, which she does stack later on once she gets Yules and stuff like that. And of course, that passive,
love
yeah.
That
Oh, it's so good. It's ridiculous. But, if she gets ganked early and doesn't have that kind of level advantage, starts to fall off, she can become very, I don't want to say useless, but much less effective. The whole key with her ult is being able to survive for the full duration of that ult being on. So if you get bursted down after you pop that ult, you're kind of a little bit useless. That's one of the great things about the Yules. They bring that pressure your way. As long as you can get it off, that forces the reset. And generally speaking, once a Death Prophet ults, gets the Yules, that's enough to shift focus. And if the other team is still trying to finish her down, usually by that point, the rest of Death Prophet's team has started to pick them off. But yeah, we've seen her play a little bit more, also synergizing with that Necronomicon style that some teams have seen in flavor. Bowler, what's your take on the Death Prophet here in 6.79?
Oh, I think it's really, really strong. I think it's going to be a top pick. That's, I pretty much agree with all you said. And it even has a silence, which is really important in team fights. So I think it's a great hero now. It's really strong.
Yeah, that's another good thing to bring up, Chris. There's been a couple of times now where you and I have both stroked each other's imaginations to how amazing the Rikimaru silence is, and if it was anybody else, it would be broken. It's just because it's on Riki. The Death Prophet silence, much more like Droz, but a utility that actually we haven't really talked about at all. No one's really talked about. I always forget that she's got a huge, nice, long AoE silence.
Yeah, like a massive 6-second silence that can basically swing an entire team fight. Yeah, there's that too on top of her ultimate. Silences, really long silences, especially if people group up. Because, if people are thinking about, oh man, there's a Tidehunter or something and there's an Enigma, they're going to spread out. But if it's just a Death Prophet, they're not going to be focused quite as much. A really good team will still be worried about the silence, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But, if you can catch, especially against someone like a Rubik, if you can get a silence on Rubik for 6 seconds, or if you can silence their best counter initiation like a Naga for 6 seconds and pick them off, it's absolutely huge. And having heroes with that kind of silencing potential, because then you have 6 seconds to bring them down instead of 2 seconds, 3 seconds for a stun.
Right.
And it's a really large amount of time that you don't have to deal with their incredibly frustrating spells. It's a large amount of time to bring them down, especially if you also have someone, you catch the silence, they start to scatter, and then no one wants to engage if 3 or 4 heroes are silenced. Their entire team is going to be scattering and trying to get away, trying not to fight you, waiting for that silence to wear off. You pick off one in the background, boom, 5v4. You didn't even burn an ultimate for it.
Right, yeah, and that's another one of those things, it's easy to look at the patch change. It's like, oh, wait a second, this hero has all this utility on top of that. And that's one of the things, always going back to that meta warrior thing. So awesome, a nice, good discussion, a good episode today. I'm glad we're able to get it. Like I said, this morning and the little preamble I was saying, I felt very disorganized getting this together, and I think it kind of came together in the end. But I have to tell you, man, meta warriors are one thing that I just... They drive me bonkers, and I've encountered them in a multitude of fashions. I've for a while was involved in some League of Legends cosplay stuff, and I've done a number of League of Legends group shoots. With cosplay things, and inevitably every single time, I've talked about this before, there's that one guy where it's like, all right, all the carries line up, and someone dressed up as Teemo walks up there, and the Dr. Meta over there is just like, Teemo, no, Teemo, it's just like, dude, it's a fucking picture, all right? Just calm down. We're not discussing the meta here. We're not on the analysis desk. We're just taking some pictures. If Teemo wants to carry, if he wants to be in the group with just let him go. It's just a picture. People are really serious about no, you cannot do that. And I like playing Dazzle, and one of my favorite things in Dota is Dazzle solo mid. Absolutely, if you had to tell me, all right, you can only do one thing for the rest of your life in Dota, I would maybe pick that. It's pretty exciting, pretty exhilarating. Go into a game. I dare you, all y'all out there that don't believe meta warriors exist. Just go out there, and try it. Go into the game and say, "Hi guys, would you mind if I go solo mid Dazzle?" They'll probably say that you should kill yourself. And that makes me sad. Say, I like going Axe mid too. Axe against Pudge mid is fun. Pudge gets near the creeps, you attack him, they all hit you, you whirling blades him down. Oh, it's a good fun for everyone. You tell people you want to do it, and they tell you your mom should have had an abortion. I'm like, dude, the meta's not that serious. Not that serious. I don't know. That's my rant, Chris. I should have switched to the Zyori rants overlay for that. Arrgh.
This is angry Zyori. Must dazzle mid.
Must dazzle mid. How dare you stand between me and my dazzle? What really chaps my ass here, we'll go back to the rant overlay. What really chaps my ass is when I say, can I go dazzle mid? And one person says, yeah, sure, I don't care. And nobody else replies. So I pick dazzle, I go mid, and then last second, someone picks void. After I've already bought my mid items, mind you, and it goes, Dazzle, aren't you going to support me? I'm like, dude, where were you during the picking phase when I said, hi guys, would you mind if I picked dazzle? I fucking asked for a reason. If you had said no.
Don't even start with me.
No, I would have liked to go mid. I would have gladly given it up to you, man. All you had to do was communicate. It drives me crazy.
I've had games where I'll even pick a traditional mid here. I'll pick like Invoker or something. I'll say, hey, I'm gonna go mid, and 3 people on the team. Yeah, cool. Okay, have fun in mid. You're gonna do fine. And then I've literally had dudes pick a hero, say me mid, and then follow me around in mid the whole time.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty terrible. I did have one game. I will say one game where I played Dazzle mid, and one of my teammates at the end, we won, and I dominated hard. And I have a screenshot of it, actually. Maybe I can pull it up really here, do some impromptu stuff. I screenshotted it because I was so proud of myself. He actually apologized and said, hey, man, I'm sorry that I was a dick to you. I really didn't think, I've got... All right, here we go. Let me minimize Skype here. All right, we're almost. Oops, that was the outro. So we're gonna wrap up here in a second, guys. You can see all my pictures here. No dick pics. Okay. So here's one Dazzle game. That's just a good one of me. Look at that. I'm gonna show off my Dazzle skills. 13, 1, and 19 Dazzle mid. I like it. Here's the game. Look at this. Sorry I gave you a hard time, but usually people are just shitty. Proved me wrong. Well, thank you, Dakota. Look at that. He really liked my Dazzle solo mid. Boom, biggity boom. Phase boots straight into the mech. That's the great thing. You go Dazzle mid and they're like, carry Dazzle? That's stupid. I'm like, dude, I don't have to carry. You could just let me go mid. I'll get a nice early mech. We could group up, maybe push some towers, turn on my old Ring of Basilius. That sounds like some good old-fashioned fun. Right? And then we win and they're like, you know what? This guy's onto something. And then I link on my stream and they tell me to fuck off and then I go play something else. So, that's it, guys. That's our episode for today. Make sure you join us Friday, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for episode 9 of the Dota Radio Morning Show. Big shout-out to Buller for... I almost said Fuller. Big shout-out to Buller for coming on today. We do appreciate him, and we'll see what we have in store for Friday. D2, is it... Something's starting. A big match is starting. I saw Join Dota tweeting, so there's a lot of action coming up, guys.
D2CL. D2CL Fnatic versus Alliance is live.
All right, it is live. I think it was supposed to start 2 minutes ago, so if it didn't start yet, it's starting in just about seconds. The VODs and all that good stuff will be uploaded. Go watch Fnatic versus Alliance. It is going to be a Buck Nasty best of 3. Then there will be another Buck Nasty BO3 after that. So, guys, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. We'll see you Friday for more talk about what's happening here in the realm of Dota 2.